Good morning. If everyone could please take their seats, the program is about to begin. Thank you.
Welcome. It's indeed a privilege and an honor to be here this morning to say a few words about our dear friend Louis Katz. Today we memorialize his memory in a very fitting way. Naming our excellent medical school as the Louis Katz School of Medicine is a tribute to all the great things Louis did for this university, its medical school, and the health system it serves. Louis was very proud of his alma mater. It gave him a great education and a better learning experience beyond the textbooks. It taught him, in his words, to believe in himself and a whole lot more. As he said, if you don't believe in you, no one else will. Louis was indeed a believer in himself and Temple University. When he became very successful, as he did, he never forgot where he came from. As he said, he was able to give back because some unknown person at Temple made the decision to give him a scholarship 55 years ago. Louis gave us so much in return, not only with his philanthropy, but his wisdom, his advice, his time, and his ability to reach out to other constituencies to help Temple University and its health system and made it become more vibrant, growing, meaningful, affordable, and accessible. As he said, quoting Coach Wooden, "You can't live a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you." So it is my hope that this permanent enshrinement of Louis Katz in the annals of Temple University, its medical school, its health system, does not just reflect his past accomplishments and his generosity, but serves as a beacon to others, including those here, his fellow trustees, the alumni of this great university, his friends, the physicians and researchers who have trained here, and those future generations who will learn here to understand and continue the mission Louis believed in and pursued so well. It was the mission he talked about when he received the Musser Award for his leadership in business and announced this game-changing gift to the university. It was the mission he expounded upon when he received an honorary degree at his beloved university and gave one of the greatest and moving speeches I have ever heard. I think it got credited as the greatest commencement address in the country, but it came from his heart. What was Louis's mission? It was simple. It was an affordable and accessible education for all persons, regardless of their race, creed, or wealth. It was to create a learning atmosphere which fosters understanding, collaboration, and a desire to do the best at whatever one decides to do. It was to educate and train the best physicians and healthcare providers. And it was to provide the best healthcare to our entire community, particularly those who are without the means to pay for what they need and what they deserve. And finally, it was to challenge government to assist us in this sacred duty of caring for those in need by providing grants and financial support. And finally, his mission was never forget Temple University, which fosters and nurtures these principles, to give back. These are the goals that we must continue in his memory and in his honor. So join me and the other leaders of Temple University and the Philadelphia community in continuing the fight for these worthy pursuits. That would be the greatest gift we could give to the heritage of Lewis Katz. I want to thank Drew Katz and Melissa Katz Silver for all they have done in fulfilling their father's dream. Drew has also taken his father's seat on the Temple board and has become a trusted advisor to me in this great university. And I thank you both for that and your generosity. So as we rename this School of Medicine for Lewis Katz, it is our hope that the men and women who work here will keep his spirit alive in what they teach and in the research they perform and in the way they heal people's bodies and spirits. We could offer no more appropriate tribute to this great man. So again, I thank you for being here to honor this great person, this great friend, and it is now my pleasure to introduce to you another great friend of Lewis, our esteemed president, Neil Theobald. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a momentous day. Naming our medical school for Lewis Katz means this remarkable man who meant so much to so many of us will always be remembered at Temple University. That's a fitting tribute, I believe, because Lewis never forgot how much Temple University had helped him. He truly, a lot of people say they love their alma mater. Lewis truly loved this university. He spoke of it. I remember my initial interview here at Temple University. The second person I met here was Lewis Katz, and he told me how much he loved this university and how important it was to him. And Patrick mentioned earlier what was really an unforgettable commencement address he gave in 2014, shortly before the tragic incident that cost him his life. And he told our graduates how much he respected the university, how much he loved the university, and talked about what it is that meant they owed back to the university. It was if you go on the YouTube and other places and see it, it is really one of the most inspirational talks that I have ever heard. And he was talking about his own beliefs about Temple University. Through his actions, large and small, he made this a much better place, and he was so incredibly helpful to me as a new president. He's very active on the board of directors, very thoughtful about what we should do. He wanted to be sure that Temple University took its rightful place as one of the great urban universities in America. And because of his efforts and because of all the guidance he provided, he succeeded in that. I remember the last time I saw Lewis. I was sitting at my desk, and I was writing and working, and I look up, and he's standing at my desk. I said, "Oh, Lewis, I didn't know you were coming by." I had written him a note after commencement, thanking him for the talk he had given and how important that is for our students to hear from someone who sat in their chair. He had gone to Temple, he'd been through what they had been through, and for him to talk of his experience and how important that was, what the value of that was to the university and, more importantly, to our students. And he's, many people would say a nice thing the next time they saw you. He came to my office to personally thank me for that note. That's the man that we celebrate today. That's the man his friends and family, and I would include myself in that group, dearly, dearly miss, but whose example we cherish. That's the man to whom we owe so much at Temple University. We may never be able to repay his kindness and his generosity, so therefore we need to pay it forward, to use that term, and advance the mission of this university in the ways that Lewis believed in so deeply. Open the doors of possibility here at the School of Medicine and throughout Temple University. Tell the Temple story broadly and proudly so that everyone comes to appreciate this university that Lewis loved and supported. Most of all, we will continue to be a place where young people with great passion, but possibly few resources, can take their first step into an amazing life. As I said, naming the medical school for Lewis is a fitting tribute for this great man, carrying on Lewis's work, ensuring that this university stays true to the mission that Lewis believed in so strongly is the greatest tribute we can offer. Thank you very much. It is now my privilege to introduce a man who knew Lewis extremely well and knew of his love for this school, and that is Dean Larry Kaiser.
Well, first, thank you, Chairman O'Connor and President Theobald. And again, I just want to take the opportunity to welcome all of our distinguished guests. I want to, in particular, thank those members who represent us in Washington as well as in the state who are here, and you'll be hearing from some of them, but Senator Casey is here, Senator Booker is here, former Governor Rendell is here, and Congressman Chaka Fattah is here as well. So please join me in welcoming them. Some of them you will hear from, in fact, but it really is a historic occasion and a momentous occasion, as Neil has pointed out. A little known fact about Lewis Katz, and Drew mentioned this yesterday for some of you who may have been here, he could have gone to medical school. This medical school, having completed his undergraduate degree in biology at Temple in 1963. His mother, of course, wanted him to be a doctor, but he apparently couldn't stand the sight of blood. So he hid the acceptance letter from her and showed her his acceptance to Dickinson Law School instead. As borne out by the evidence, law and business proved to be the ideal direction for Lewis. Moreover, he maintained lifelong ties to medicine anyway, through service on the boards of Temple University Health System, where we were so privileged to have him, the Fox Chase Cancer Center. Once we did that acquisition, Lewis joined us on that board, and many other medical causes and foundations, as well as some issues with his own health. In fact, every year, still, Columbia University awards a prize for outstanding contributions in the field of cardiology, the Lewis Katz Prize. And the final gift in his magnificent career of philanthropy was for this medical school, as you know. If only his mother were here today to see an entire medical school named in her son's honor. This trumps an adoring Jewish mother's wish for a doctor in the family. Now she has thousands. Thousands. If only. Kay Redfield Jamison, a professor of psychiatry at Johns Hopkins, talks about a human quality that, and I quote, is incomparably more important than we acknowledge. That quality is exuberance. Exuberance is a persistent intensity that comes from within. It, quote, carries us to places we would not otherwise go, she says. Exuberant people take in the world and act upon it differently than those who are less lively and energetically engaged. Does this not perfectly describe Lewis Katz? And isn't it exuberance that's driven this School of Medicine since its founding in 1901? The men and women who created this school, who sustained this school, and who carry its legacy forward today were and are some of the most determined, most exuberant people medicine has ever met, and there indeed have been challenges. They created medical specialties, wrote seminal textbooks, invented procedures and instruments, founded important professional societies, all while taking care of patients, teaching medical students, and being responsible for outstanding research discoveries and medical breakthroughs. I'm proud to say this school receives over 11,000 applications for admission every year. It is, in fact, the fourth most applied to medical school in the country, and we grant about 1,000 interviews to select about 210 students. In fact, our admissions committee really does a stellar job in selecting 210 students out of those 11,000 some odd applicants. That we're targeting candidates with competitive MCAT scores and GPAs is a given, and the ideal physician for the 21st century, however, requires more than just high test scores. Real doctoring requires people whose eyes and hearts are wide open. Bold, innovative thinkers who see opportunities where others see obstacles. energetic people who are driven by the desire to better other people's lives. And now, at long last, the medical school gets Lewis Katz, not as a student, but as its name, its very identity, something that will endure beyond the endpoint of all our lives. It's as if long-separated pieces of a puzzle have been reunited. The mission of the school and an individual who personifies the spirit and essence of that mission are now united in a name. Talk about firepower for the future. The Lewis Katz School of Medicine will mean many things to many people. To patients, hope and healing. To clinicians and researchers, discovery and clinical translation that will advance patient care. To students, an unsurpassed education in science, medicine, and service. And that's really the core of it. Service in the most reverent and transformational sense of the word. Something Lewis Katz was clearly exuberant about, something that is the foundation of medicine and something which is at the heart of the Temple-trained physician. We are so honored to join these legacies in our new name. Now, of course, Lewis meant a lot of things to a lot of people, as this tribute will make clear, and please watch the video screens.
As a member of the Temple University Board of Trustees, Lewis Katz is a thoughtful voice of authority who places the best interests of Temple students above all other considerations.
I came here, I know you're not going to believe it because of my face, 55 years ago. I was scared, I was so unsure of myself, and I remember my first day feeling like I was on another planet. I was lost. I was a kid from Camden, New Jersey. I dreamed of being an NBA player. But after being cut from my junior high school team and my high school team, I realized the only way I wasn't going to get cut is if I bought an NBA team. I pushed myself to get involved. I made friends 50 years ago who found their way into my heart and into my soul. This school can be your launching pad. It's recognized, it's respected, and it's loved by its alumni. I am going to give a gift to Temple in thankfulness for its helping me in so many ways. But most of all, to help create some self-confidence. And it'll be in the amount of $25 million, which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. What you can do is you can make every effort in your life to make a difference. Life, in my view, is meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to have as much fun as you can conjure up. Remember, success isn't about material things. Watch. Study people you admire. Work matters, but family matters more. If I leave one thing for my grandchildren, it's the knowledge and the responsibility that those who have been lucky and fortunate need to share. Hope, it keeps us going. Work gives life meaning. Make time for those who need you and for the causes you believe in. I will conclude by giving you what I think is the mantra of my life. There was a basketball coach, maybe the best ever in college, at UCLA, by the name of John Wooden. He said one thing that has resonated with me for as long as I've lived. He said, you can't live a perfect day. You can't live a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you. Who will never be able to repay you.
So as I mentioned, we are honored today to be joined by a number of distinguished speakers, many of whom Louis knew extremely well. I mentioned Senator Booker. We also have Physician General Rachel Levine here today. And speaking next, a great friend of our medical school. I'm pleased to call him my friend as well. Please join me in welcoming Senator Robert Casey.
Well, good morning, Doctor. Thank you so much for that introduction and for the honor of being here. Chairman O'Connor and President Theobald, honored to be with my colleague Cory Booker. Drew and Melissa, we're so grateful on a day like today that you allowed us to be part of this ceremony. And I think the whole Temple family, as well as the Katz family, but of course on today and on every other day, it's one and the same. The scriptures tell us that it is in giving that we receive. And oh, how Louis Katz gave over and over again. So many causes, so many priorities, and certainly to so many people, many of whom we'll never know. But I guess what made him special was not just what he gave and how much he gave, but by his constant focus on receiving. If he were here today, he would probably focus so much more of his time and his commentary and his thoughts on what he had received, not on what he had given. I was saying to Drew earlier, before we started our program, that I didn't know him as well as so many of the people here today. But I got a sense of who he was in about the last decade. I remember being at a seminar, or I should say a conference out in California, the Milken Institute, where they covered in 4 or 5 days every subject you can think of. And one of the subjects that they had a program for was early learning, but it wasn't one of the best attended parts of that 4-day or 5-day seminar. But I was there on a panel, a little small stage. The room is very dark, only about 20 people in the room, in the audience. All the other people were at the big events. I was speaking at the small event. And in the middle of the program, the lights were down. I couldn't really see in front of me, and I finally looked carefully. Right in the first row was Louis Katz. And I thought, what is he doing here in this small little room in California talking about early learning? But it was because he was curious, it was because he cared, and it was because he wanted to figure out a way to help children, as he did over and over again. And today is another example of that, to help this school of medicine. This is a school of medicine, but it's a place that will bring about and has brought about healing and hope, as Dr. Kaiser said. It's a place really of ministry, in the best sense of that word. ministry to the broken and the beaten, a place of warm light in the awful darkness that some people live their lives in. So as we celebrate today his life and his giving, his generosity for this School of Medicine, for this region, for our Commonwealth and our country, let us also thank Lewis Katz for allowing us to receive the benefit of his generosity, for allowing us to be part of that wonderful and blessed sense that you have when you have given that you receive. Thank you, Lewis, for allowing us to receive your generosity. God bless you.
Good morning. I would like to thank President Theobald, Chairman O'Connor, and Dean Kaiser, and the Katz family, along with Senator Casey and Senator Booker, for allowing me to join you today as we commemorate this dedication. On behalf of Governor Tom Wolf and as the Physician General of Pennsylvania, I am very pleased to join you today in celebration of Mr. Lewis Katz. Mr. Katz's dedication and commitment to Temple University, to the advancement of medicine, and to the support of young people worldwide was certainly extraordinary. As a pediatrician and adolescent medicine physician, I am particularly thankful to Mr. Katz for his contributions to the health and well-being of young people. Mr. Katz was committed to ensuring that young people had a safe place to play, to learn, and to live. This commitment created a solid foundation for these children and teens to grow into young adults and to lead us into the next generation. He recognized that seriously ill children and teens needed access to expert providers and cutting-edge medical treatment. He also knew that those children needed the opportunity to simply enjoy their childhood with their friends and their family. This demonstrates his progressive awareness that people needed healthy minds and healthy bodies, and his recognition that all young people have the right to the opportunity to exceed. Mr. Katz worked to ensure that young people had the tools that they needed to overcome challenging circumstances. And so it is very fitting that a world-class academic medical center like the Temple University School of Medicine would now be named after Mr. Lewis Katz. The students here will most certainly learn important lessons in anatomy and physiology and all the basic sciences and the other medical sciences, but they will also receive an important education regarding more interpersonal skills like compassion and empathy for their patients. Lewis Katz in his life are a model of how important those skills are. His example will better position students to be successful both in their careers and in their personal endeavors and in their lives. So thank you for having me here, and congratulations to Temple University and the Katz family for this remarkable dedication. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a quiet audience. If we're going to honor Lewis Katz, people should start heckling me when I stand up here to speak. When I heard about his $25 million gift to the school, I decided to start telling the truth about our relationship. I am Lewis Katz's black illegitimate love child. My mother got upset when she heard me that I was going to tell that joke, and I said, Mom, he gave $25 million away. And she was okay with it after that. Look, I do feel this sense that Lewis became a father figure in my life. And it wasn't just because of the compassion and the love and the interest he took in me, the support he gave me professionally, and more importantly, the support he gave me personally. But I felt this affection for him because, amazingly, I felt a kinship between him and my dad. Both of them were guys that were born poor. In fact, too poor to be poor. They were just po' boys, P-O, couldn't afford the other two letters, po' boys, who grew up both without a father, who grew up both in tough circumstances. And as I got to know Louis Katz, I found his story simply amazing. It inspired me. The dean said that Louis couldn't stand the sight of blood, but I think that's kind of like saying Muhammad Ali couldn't stand to see pain inflicted on other people, because Louis was quite the fighter, and in a metaphorically way, he was tactical and surgical and built a career that was extraordinary. He amassed a tremendous amount of wealth. But what made him special to me was that this was not the defining characteristic of who he was. It didn't dominate our conversations. It wasn't what I found him interested in. It wasn't what sort of were the trappings of his existence. In fact, when I engaged with him, he seemed so much more interested, not in accumulating wealth and building more businesses, but in figuring out a way to connect with the people he felt were just like him. And this had nothing to do about politics or race or religion. He was passionately interested in the recognition of the greatest natural resource any country could have. And it's not its oil or its gas, it is its children. What was inspiring to me is that he was offended by anyone who did not recognize the worth and the value of the young people coming up. He said in his commencement address, of which we saw pieces, that he came to this university poor, insecure, fatherless kid from Camden, New Jersey, but don't let anybody say he came from nothing. Wealth for Louis was not the defining character of you, it was your very character, your worth. He recognized that value and that worth and the need to cultivate it. And he seemed to be captivated and inspired by the underdog. He seemed to be interested in folks who had seen the most difficult sides of life. He lived this African-American ideal, the Christian faith that weeping may endure through the night, but joy cometh in the morning. He loved the Torah heroes, that even though you might face, like David did, a Goliath, even though you might be thrown in the lion's den like Daniel, even though you might be called to do the ultimate sacrifice like Abraham, there is always a ram in the bush. He believed that the American ideal was just that. What does the Statue of Liberty say? Give me your poor. Give me your tired. Give me your huddled masses, the wretched refuse of your teeming shores. Send these to me. And so I celebrate today with joy in my spirit, because his name does not just adorn these buildings. I tell you, I've met lots of folks who seized upon naming rights to share their wealth for that kind of glory, but this is not who Louis Katz was. For him, this was about the perpetuation of that core ideal of his, of service, of doing for others, of cultivating the best of who we are. So I'm honored to stand in this great institution and this marrying of a man's name and his legacy with an institution that for decades has lived this. And I tell you this, in my conversations with Louis, I know he would say that we have work left to do. What does it profit a nation to have the greatest medical institutions in the industrialized world, but still have the sickest people? What does it profit a nation to have the best medical services money can buy, but still have people that can't afford to have quality health care. He knew that poverty is a toxic, unhealthy state. He knew that children in Camden struggle and fight with 4 times the level of asthma rates, with lead paint poisoning that's epidemic. He knew that we as a nation were not living up to who we're called to be. Fertile soil, not toxic soil. And so he left this legacy. It's been said already, and it will be said again, that quote from John Wooden that he said is the ideal of perfection in a day, that you cannot live a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you. He remembered that because, like my dad and like him, there were people that gave him, not just directly like this scholarship, but that created a country in which he could exist. He inherited a conspiracy of love, a legacy that was given to him by that conspiracy. And the question is, as we celebrate today, how will we honor that? Lewis has left us. Death can definitely end a life, but it cannot end a love. The love that he gave radiates service and contribution and perfection out into the universe. My dream for this great institution and for all of us is that we may live up to that legacy and prove worthy of the man's love. Thank you.
You forgot to introduce me, Corey. Today is an incredibly special day. Today is an incredibly sad day for my sister, my wife, and me. 18 months, it's like a blink. So I hope you'll forgive us for sneaking out during the video because it was too much for us to handle. Today would be a day that our parents would be so proud. The Lewis Katz School of Medicine. Just truly, truly unbelievable. So thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Senator Casey. Thank you, Dr. Levine. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Shane Victorino, for taking a red eye last night, 2 nights ago, and coming and speaking to the students yesterday. They all loved you. And thanks for getting me my first and only standing ovation in life. I look around the room and I see incredible friends and family. My in-laws that flew in from Florida, people that knew my dad, loved my dad, connected with my dad, and just students who want to learn and know more about him. And I really appreciate it. My sister really appreciates it. Thank you. How much did my dad love Temple University? You know, it was everything to him. You see, before he reached the age of 1, as you heard earlier, his father had died. He had received very little love at home. Life was about survival. His upbringing bred a whole lot of insecurity. For Lewis Katz to achieve what he did in life, the enormous success he had in law, parking, billboards, banking, real estate, television, sports. The success he had as a parent, as a grandparent. He needed to develop a strong sense of self. And that inner strength, that sense of self, came from his experience at Temple University. What was so amazing about this man, a man who truly sprinkled magic sparkle dust wherever he went and with whomever he met, was that he never forgot his roots. You see, for my dad, having his name on the building would have been nice, but what's amazing is having what the naming of the building represents and all of the people that his generosity will help. And that's what truly drove him. My dad had a unique way of making people like him and making friends. And that was really one of the keys to his success in life. I'll never forget the story he used to share with me. He was a young lawyer, 25, 26 years old, hung out a shingle, had a criminal case in which he was representing the defendant, very experienced prosecutor, somebody like Dick Sprague on the other side, very smart, tough. And he got up before the jury and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Louis Katz. I'm a young lawyer. In fact, I'm so young, my diploma hasn't even been framed yet. I want you to know something. Today, and over the course of the next few days during this trial, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. And I want you to not hold those mistakes against the defendant here, Mr. Jones." And he went on and on about all the mistakes he was going to make during the trial, to the point where the prosecutor said, "Objection." And before the judge could rule, he turned to the jury and said, "See, I told you I was going to make a lot of mistakes." And he won the jury. And that's the way he lived his life, winning friends. He could make you laugh at any moment. This medical school is named for one of the truly great people this world has ever known. Our dad left an indelible mark on hundreds, if not thousands of people. He never tired of trying to figure out how to help others. Just spend a day hanging out with him and you'd be as likely to hang out with his favorite porter from Amtrak or his favorite waiter from the diner as you would with senators, presidents, governors. Louis Katz was unique, and as lucky as our family is to have Temple honor him this way, Temple University is luckier to have such a magical angel looking over its students, over its faculty, over this incredible school. I thought I'd take you back to a speech that my dad gave in 2004 and have you hear his own words and his experience with this terrific university. He began like this. "My journey to Temple began with a subway token. The year was 1959. I was a 17-year-old kid from Camden, about to embark on an experience that would change my life. Little did I know it at the time. My plan was to become a doctor, fulfilling my mother's dream. I saw Temple as a path to do that. It was accessible. It was affordable. It had a mission for average students. You didn't have to be a genius to enroll. It was a working class school, a blue-collar school where most of the kids knew privilege as being able to afford that subway token. I was a biology major. I remember carrying my dead cat on the subway in a plastic bag from mammalian anatomy. I carried that cat on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I had no problem getting a seat on the subway at rush hour. I spent 3 years studying biology, chemistry, and physics, working to fulfill my mother's dream, Dr. Katz. The moment I knew was in an anatomy lab. Dr. Ralph Wichterman. He came up to me in a very heavy accent, and he said, "Mr. Katz, the inferior venous cava has just ruptured. What do you do?" I said, "Well, Dr. Wichterman, I would get my forceps." "Too late, Mr. Katz, the patient is dead." And he walked away. It was at that moment I knew I would never be a doctor. In my junior year, the dean gave me $1,000 to start an after-school program. We called it the Hour of Pleasure. Temple was a commuter school, and the idea was to give students a chance to stay after class rather than rush home, give them campus life. I was working in the cloakroom at Mitten Hall, hanging up coats for $1 an hour. I started the program. We brought in speakers. We brought in the mamas and the papas and Josh White to the school. The last speaker was a guy named Drew Pearson, and that introduction would alter the course of my future. Soon, the transformation was complete. I moved away from medicine and my mother's idea of my future to a vision of my own. I began to study law and government. I went to live in Washington, a world away from my Camden roots, and I worked for Drew Pearson. The experience led to a lifelong friendship. He was the best man at my wedding. My son, Drew, is named for him. I went on to law school, and I followed my own ideas about what would make for an interesting life. Temple was the vehicle for that. More than academics, I think that Temple's student activities really helped shape my future. More than biology, more than chemistry, and certainly more than the dead cat. My career evolved over the years from law to politics to banking to advertising to parking to sports. 41 years have passed since my graduation from Temple in 1963. All the businesses have been sold or will be sold in the next few months. And the best thing I have going for me, and I'm sure my wife Margie would agree, is that I'm a Poppy 2 times. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of that first subway token, and I am privileged and appreciative that the first stop was Temple. Some people have asked me why the School of Medicine. After all, you heard the stories of my dad as a businessman and a lawyer. In truth, he was fascinated by the inner workings of the human body. He was amazed at how doctors saved lives. He used to say to me when he was in the parking business, "Son, I park cars, but that person over there," pointing to a doctor, "that person saves lives." This incredible medical school will graduate doctors who serve the underserved population of North Philadelphia. This incredible medical school is world-class, one of the best schools in the state. This incredible medical school, as we learned earlier, has one of the highest number of applications of any school in the country. Why did he make the gift to Temple Medical School? That's why. My wife, who's 9 months pregnant, please don't go into labor today, remarked last night how my father's life impacted so many people and continues to impact so many people, even though he's no longer physically here with us today. There is rarely a time or a place where we go somewhere in the world where we don't meet somebody with a Lewis story. His impact knew no limits. In his commencement address to the class of 2014, when my dad received his honorary doctorate and became Dr. Katz, he told the students, "Ours is an alma mater that deserves your love, your loyalty, and yes, your pride. Temple taught me to believe in myself and a whole lot more. But please remember this, if you forget everything else I've said, if you don't believe in you, No one will. We've now heard 4 times the great quote that my dad said from John Wooden. And the problem with not being an experienced politician and going last is that you're going to hear it a 5th time. But the quote adorns the dean's conference room outside his office, and you know it as, you can't live a perfect day without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you. And as Ed Rendell said at my father's memorial service, Lewis Katz lived many, many, many perfect days. Thank you very much.
Dear faculty, staff, deans, students, distinguished guests, and Katz family and friends, it is a true honor to be here this morning and have the opportunity to share what Temple School of Medicine means to me. Around this time, 4 years ago, I was applying to medical school, and Temple offered me my first interview. I knew Temple created outstanding clinicians and educators, and that the institution had a strong commitment to service. These were the values that attracted me to Temple in the first place. Upon my visit, I was instantly drawn to the infectious energy from faculty, staff, and every student I met. I experienced firsthand a commitment to service and leadership. Every student I met was actively involved in local service organizations, participated in global health trips, or had an active leadership role in the student body. I immediately knew that I wanted to be a Temple student. 2 days before Christmas Day, I received one of the best Christmas presents I have received in my life. I have been accepted to Temple University School of Medicine, class of 2016. Before mentioning my amazing journey in these last 4 years, I want to share some context as to who I am and how my experiences drew me to Temple. I was born in Havana, Cuba, soon after the end of the Cold War. My dad came from a neighborhood not much different from North Philadelphia. He experienced poverty and violence, yet he managed to pursue an MD degree and became an internist and geriatrician. My mom, on the other hand, came from a rural background where educational opportunities were limited. As a matter of fact, my grandfather did not learn how to read and write until age 16. Growing up, my family valued education and serving others. Unfortunately, due to political persecution, we were forced to leave Cuba and move to the US in the early 2000s. As it is true for many immigrant families, economic hardships affected us from the moment we arrived. In spite of my parents' education, their employment opportunities were limited and affected our healthcare coverage. As a matter of fact, I actually did not have health insurance throughout college and lived in fear of getting sick since I knew I couldn't afford to go to a physician or pay for medications. All of this experience led to a passion for serving underserved communities and reducing health disparities. This is why 4 years ago, Temple was a perfect fit, and this continues to hold true today. The last 3 years have been extraordinary. Yes, it has been stressful, and I cannot say that I have fond memories of anatomy quizzes, cardio finals, or the dreaded rats on a neuroscience block. Nonetheless, being an active member of the student body provided me with opportunities to develop my leadership, communication, and interpersonal skills. Early on in first year, I enrolled in the Masters of Urban Bioethics, program which explores social determinants of health and ethical dilemmas that affect urban communities. The master's program, along with my involvement in different student organizations, have taught me how to become a leader in medicine and how to effectively advocate for my patients. During the clinical years, I understood why they said that Temple trained excellent physicians. Our patients have unique social and financial challenges, which directly affect their health and well-being. Many of our patients suffer from preventable diseases and have multiple comorbidities, which make the management of their health conditions a true challenge, all while adding the social issues: poverty, violence, unemployment, lack of access to healthcare coverage, and healthcare providers. Yet, the Temple clinician is not intimidated by what many see as obstacles. The Temple clinician sees it as an opportunity and challenge they're willing to tackle, with the ultimate goal being achieving the patient's well-being. This work ethic and passion has been passed on to me in these last 3 years and have shown me the type of clinician I want to be, the Temple-made physician. Louis Katz was well aware of the challenges many of our patients experience. He himself experienced poverty firsthand. He grew up in Camden and was raised by a mother who worked 2 or 3 jobs in order to feed her family. He became a living example of how hard work and taking advantage of every opportunity presented can change a person's path despite economic hardships. He never forgot about his upbringings and had a devotion and commitment to giving back to those less fortunate. Through the Katz Foundation, he built schools, supported the Boys and Girls Club, and provided support for medical causes, among many others. Mr. Katz knew the importance of medical education and improving the health of the Philadelphia community. He could have donated to any other school or institution, but he knew what Temple School of Medicine stood for: service to the community. As I embark on residency interviews and prepare for the next phase of my training, I am certain that Temple has provided me with all the tools necessary to succeed in any field and at any institution. But more than the academic and clinical preparation, Temple School of Medicine has become a home away from home. The faculty and staff have provided me with strong support and mentorship throughout all of these years, and I have shared unforgettable memories with my classmates, many who I call friends. So what does graduating from the Louis Katz School of Medicine and Temple University means to me? It represents all the values Mr. Katz stood for: leadership, opportunity, camaraderie, and service. Thank you. And now, on behalf of the school, I have one more surprise for Drew and Melissa. As we build on the past and look for the future as the new Louis Katz School of Medicine, we would like to present your family with a lasting symbol of our gratitude. The Medical School 1930 building, which for 85 years served as the former home of the School of Medicine, was adorned with 8 cast iron owls, a pair of them over every entrance. For generations, they watched over all the students who passed in and out of the building. We have restored one of those architectural treasures and given it a Temple University update. I've been asked to tell you we're unveiling the owl today, and we'll deliver it to you later, because as it turns out, cast irons are very heavy. So to the Katz family, it is my honor to present you with this gift on behalf of our School of Medicine.
And Drew, I can attest to the fact they are very heavy. Well, thank you, Drew, Melissa, and the entire Katz family for giving us this great honor. Ladies and gentlemen, we began today's program as the Temple University School of Medicine, and in the next few minutes we will transform and officially become the Louis Katz School of Medicine at Temple University. And we're particularly privileged to have here to sing us through this historic transition Louis's all-time favorite musical group. And I remember well the story he told me. He first met these guys in Atlantic City, and he literally fell in love with them, heard them many times, had them perform at his home. They also happen to be Neil Theobald's favorite group because they hail from Indiana. But they're here as a personal favor to pay tribute to Louis and the Katz family, the world-renowned Straight No Chaser. Now, Straight No Chaser will perform Make You Feel My Love, written by Bob Dylan. During the performance, please keep your eyes on the video screens, and you'll see the permanent installation of Louis's favorite quote on the 11th floor of this building. It's been mentioned right outside the Dean's suite. You'll see the exterior building facade and our brand new North Broad Street signage. And at the conclusion of the song, Drew and Melissa will unveil a portrait of their father by Italian artist Francesco Mernini, and this portrait will hang in this lobby in perpetuity. Ladies and gentlemen, straight, no chaser.
I can make you happy, make your dreams come true. There is nothing that I wouldn't do. I would go to the end of the earth for you to make you feel my love. Oh, to make you feel my love. Make you feel my love, feel my love. Oh, feel my love.
Amazing. Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's official. From this point forward, we are the Lewis Katz School of Medicine at Temple University. In particular, I want to thank all of our speakers this morning, Adis Mendizabal, Chairman O'Connor, President Theobald, Senator Casey, Dr. Levine, Senator Booker, and of course, Straight No Chaser. Thank you, Drew, Melissa, and the entire Katz family. We hope to live up to your father's name, and we will strive every day to make you as proud of us as he was of you. Thank you all for being here this morning to mark this milestone in our history. Please join us as we proceed to the garden for lunch. And because Lewis wouldn't have wanted this occasion to be solemn, and because nobody loved Temple like he did, as you've heard many times this morning, we're going to be led to lunch by following the drummer from the Temple University Marching Band. It says cue.